It's Victory Monday here at Dolphins today after we just dominated the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, which, listen, I know the season might be over and people want draft picks, but boy, defeating Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills will always bring a smile to my face. And the question is, should Miami ultimately keep Mike McDaniel? Because although the season has looked lost at times, the Dolphins roster has not given up on the season. They continue to play hard for Coach McDaniel. And you know what, folks? They've actually won 2 of their last 3 games against the Falcons on the road and against the Bills at home. Now, I do think it's a bit of an overreaction if you are coming here on Overreaction Monday and saying Miami should keep Mike McDaniel, because over the last year and a half and 2 seasons, we have still seen more bad than good, but it does raise the question, at least, if Miami should give it second thoughts in terms of firing Mike McDaniel after the season. We know Stephen Ross, in a perfect world, would like to keep Mike McDaniel. He gave McDaniel a contract extension prior to the 2024 season after back-to-back years of making the playoffs. But then last season was a disaster for the most part. Tua did miss 6 games. You had a division inside the locker room. And then this year, you get off to this horrid start. And a lot of people, myself included, were fire McDaniel. And I still think that it's more likely than not you need to get rid of him. But you have to sit back and look at this and okay, this roster that Chris Greer gave him was pretty bad. They had injuries early on in the year. Now, part of that could be because of the roster Chris Greer gave him, but you have Tyreek Hill injured. You get James Daniels injured. You have Austin Jackson injured. Tua's decline in play a little bit. Yet Miami is continuing to improve every week. Let's not be overreactionary here, but also come to the realization that it's pretty evident that the Dolphins right now would beat up on the Dolphins in September. Absolutely would hammer them, because this team is playing way better defensively. They are doing much better against the run. Just think about what they did. James Cook didn't even have 50 rushing yards. They held Bijan Robinson under 50 total yards. So 2 of the premier backs in the NFL were bottled up in each of the last 2 out of 3 weeks. So they've done much better. Now, are they still an elite defense? No. Are they still a good defense? No. But they're not the worst defense in the NFL anymore. And that gives a credit to the coaching staff, Anthony Weaver, as well as Mike McDaniel, for keeping these guys kind of locked into the matter. But it is Victory Monday, Dolphins fans. We haven't beat the Bills since September of 2022. So I will enjoy this win right here. So hit that thumbs up icon if you're with me on enjoying the victory. So we like to do Overreaction Mondays and give you kind of my ranking system. So in terms of keeping Mike McDaniel, I'm still just going to give it 2 fins. Listen, I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't anymore. I think we have to see how the rest of the season plays out. Because if this Dolphins team ultimately rattles off 5 straight wins here and is back on the in the hunt playoff graphic, is that a testament to Mike McDaniel's ability to keep the locker room intact and keep them moving forward? Or is it just meaningless wins that ultimately ruins draft position? I mean, that's the conversation that will be had. I'm not completely sold yet. Like I said, we have to see how the rest of the season goes. But this team has been playing better. But we've also seen consistent procedural issues, second half letdowns, and poor execution. Miami's been one of the worst second half teams in the NFL. They always seem to come out flat after halftime. And I think that has a lot to do with the coaching. So it's a tough line to follow, because it feels like you want to get behind the coach and say, all right, this team is playing better. He's got the boys locked in. Yet you know what has happened over the last year and a half, and you're like, well, how can I unforget and unsee all the incompetence that we've seen from him and this coaching staff over the last 365 days? But the last thing I'll say on Mike McDaniel, there is clearly a lot of respect in the locker room. I have consistently said that I don't think the locker room respects him because the way that they've played and his antics in the media. But when you see some of these clips coming out after the games on Miami celebrating inside the locker room and having their post-game speeches, it feels like the players are responding to Mike McDaniel. The play on the field and effort directly correlates with that belief as well. So I do think that the Dolphins players aren't lost. The locker room isn't lost. And I think these players do kind of respect and like playing for Mike McDaniel to a degree. Let's continue here on Victory Monday. I want to talk about this. Should the Miami Dolphins extend Devon Achane? Remember, one fin is small shed is truth. Two fins are people are talking. Three, it's likely. And four, absolutely. Well, I'm giving four, which means absolutely Miami should extend Devon Achane. This is one of your best young players. I think he is your second best player on your team right now. It's either him or Jalen Waddle at this point, because Waddle, boy, oh boy, has he been absolutely cooking ever since Tyreek Hill went down. But I think if you could, you should extend Devon Achane tomorrow. Now, is that going to happen? No, because the Dolphins will have a formal GM search after the season, and whoever Stephen Ross ultimately hires, whether it's Champ Kelly, which I don't think should be, or an outside GM, that GM will ultimately be allowed to make the decision. But if there are like a couple players that you would say, all right, this interim GM can extend right now, I think Devon Achane would be one of them. And he might be the only one, to be fair, because Waddle's already extended. I don't know if there's any other player that would be worthy of extending right now. But you know that you probably want to keep Devon Achane around long term. He's 24 years old. He is one of the most dynamic backs in all of the NFL. And he just absolutely dominated Buffalo yesterday. Now, the Bills have one of the worst run defenses in the entire National Football League, and we've seen that throughout the last really 3 to 4 years, but this season specifically. Achane went for 8 yards a carry, 2 tuds, and 225 total yards. Like, he's just an absolute stallion. But this isn't just a one-game thing against a bad defense. He does this consistently every single week, and he's done it every single year since he's entered the league as a day 2 pick out of Texas A&M. Like, look at his numbers this season. He's already totaled 1,100 total yards from scrimmage. He's going to get close, if not surpass, 2,000 scrimmage yards this year, and he will surpass with ease 1,000 rushing yards for the first time in his career. He's had 9 touchdowns, and he is just a dynamic player. He is a weapon. Now, is he a lead back that can carry the ball 25 times a game every single week? No, because he's a smaller back that his body just can't handle that. But if he is a guy that you can get 20 to 25 touches a game, he will likely return you with over 100 yards and at least be a distraction for the opposing defense to where they are so worried and keyed in on not letting Achane break free like he did in the fourth quarter against the Bills twice, that it will ultimately open up and spread out that defense for other players to do work over the middle of the field, whether it is a Jalen Waddle, an Ollie Gordon, a tight end, Malik Washington, because he really is a game-changing player and a game breaker for the Miami Dolphins. More coming up here in a second, but this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The season rolls on here. The weather is changing. It's freezing in Dallas today, yet the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks, where you get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. So simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Hey, on Sunday, if you went more on Devon Achane fantasy score, receptions, and touchdowns, well, you would have cashed in, and you could do all of that in the same lineup, only on Prize Picks. I have an entry for Monday Night Football. I think more than Devontae Smith, more than Josh Jacobs' touchdowns, but that Packers run defense is pretty solid. I'm going less than Saquon Barkley rushing yards. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I mean, you look at Devon Achane's ranks amongst NFL running backs through NFL Week 10. Now, obviously, Miami has not had their bye yet. Some teams have. But when you look at it, he's 4th in rushing yards on the season. He's 2nd in yards per carry, averaging 5.5. The only player that is above him in yards per carry is Jonathan Taylor, who's going to win Offensive Player of the Year, if not MVP. Devon Achane only trails Rico Dowdle and James Cook and Jonathan Taylor in rushing yards, by the way. In terms of rushing yards over expected per attempt, Devon Achane ranks 10th. And his final fourth quarter or his first touchdown yesterday, where he went up the middle, he had to do a little slide and then another slide. He did like a couple little cuts within the line of scrimmage and was able to break free and then run past Jordan Poyer for a touchdown. Like, Devon Achane was so special yesterday. But the part that makes him so special to me is his ability to make plays in the receiving game, man. Like, he's the second highest reception running back behind Christian McCaffrey, and he's third in receiving yards behind Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey. Like, I've always said this, that I think Devon Achane is the second best receiving back in football. McCaffrey's the only one better. But when you look at the dual threat running backs in the NFL, it is Bijan, it is Achane, it is Christian McCaffrey. That's it. And the best 5 running backs in football, in my opinion, are those 3, Jonathan Taylor, and probably Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, that, Devon Achane is absolutely in that conversation. And boy, when you think about it, you're like, okay, you have this young stud running back. Should you pay him right now? Well, let's take a look at the contract for Devon Achane first here, Coop, because he only has 1 year left on his contract in 2026. Remember, 4-year rookie deal. And it's a steal because he's still on that rookie contract for a day 2 pick at $1.7 million. But he's a free agent in the following year. So Devon Achane entering a contract year, getting paid next to nothing, is likely going to ask for a new contract. Now, this could get hairy if Miami doesn't want to pay him, because you could see a potential holdout or hold him in July or August when you get to training camp. Or you can do the simple, smart decision, whoever the new GM is, and ultimately extend Devon Achane. But now you have to ask yourself, how much should Devon Achane ultimately get? Well, right now, Saquon and Christian McCaffrey are the 2 highest backs in football, both making $19 and $20 million. But then it's a clear drop-off to where you get 15, 14, 12, 11. James Cook just signed a 4-year, $48 million contract with the Buffalo Bills after holding out this past August. Now, if you're asking me, Devon Achane is probably going to ask to be paid on the left side of the screen, somewhere in that top 5. And let's be real here, probably rightfully so. Like, he has been an unbelievable player for Miami, no distractions, been healthy for the most part. He's going to want to be paid like a top 3 back in football, and you probably will have to give it to him if you ultimately want to keep him a Dolphin for the foreseeable future. But let me know your thoughts. Before I give you my contract projection for Devon Achane, should the Dolphins give him an extension? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Now, you ask what my projection would be for Devon Achane. I think a 3-year, $51 million deal is somewhere where he will ask for, and it's where, like, I'm probably fine giving him it. Like, it's $17 million per season, obviously, and that's a big hit for a running back, especially for a roster that ultimately doesn't need a star running back, and you need a lot of other help in the trenches and in the secondary and on the offensive line. But, like, if you don't pay him that, like, he's probably going to leave. And if that's the case, then you should probably trade him. Like, I don't want that. I want that very clear. But there is a world where a new GM who didn't draft Devon Achane comes into this building and says, listen, Devon, we'd love to keep you on like 14th per season. Devon says, no way, Jose. I want this contract that I have on screen. And then the new GM is like, well, we're not paying you that. And then they ultimately trade him going into his final year of his contract. Like, it's very possible. I don't want that to happen, but I feel like he's going to ask for something like this to be that 3rd highest paid running back. Probably deserves that, but should Miami give that to him? It's a real discussion to have, because where Miami's roster standpoint is, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to divulge that much money to a running back, right? I didn't like saying that whatsoever. But is the season still alive for the Miami Dolphins? That's the final overreaction on today's show. I'm going 1 fin, folks. I can't give you 2. I'll give you 1. I just don't think this is something that ultimately is parlayed into a miraculous playoff run. Like, I'll say this: are the Dolphins making the playoffs? No, because I think you got to go 10-7 or 3-7, so they have to win their last 7 games. But could they absolutely be in the hunt graphic on game days in a month? Absolutely. Like, you look at the final 8 weeks of the season for Miami here. They play the Commanders in Madrid this Sunday. The Commanders have been atrocious this year. That defense is terrible, and they have no Jaden Daniels. That's a game Miami absolutely can win. Then you have your bye week, and you have 2 weeks to prepare for the New Orleans Saints, one of the worst teams in football. And then you go on the road against the Jets, albeit cold conditions in January, but another really bad football team. Like, there is a realistic pathway where they win the next 3 games and are 6-7. And if you are 6-7, you are going to be in the hunt on the in the hunt graphic in the final month of the year. Now, you saw the final month where you have to go to Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. You have to play the Bengals at home in prime time. Who knows if Joe Burrow will be back? Season might be over, so they might keep him out for the rest of the year. And then you round up the season against 2 perennial contenders in the Buccaneers and Patriots. So, like, honestly, the most Dolphins thing of all time would be to win the next 5 games, get to 8-7, and then lose both the final games to go to 8-9 against the Patriots and Bucs. Like, that's the most Dolphins thing of all time. But if that happens, like, you probably are going to keep McDaniel for another year at least, right? And then see what happens with Tua's contract and his probable final year in Miami too. Like, I mean, there's just so much to play for in the last 7 weeks of the season. And man, that schedule over the next month is like so gettable. I think Miami is going to be 6-7. I really do. And I know I said I didn't see a couple wins on the year a couple weeks ago, but I also didn't think they were going to come out and beat the Bills and look like the superior team. Like, you take away records in that Bills-Dolphins game yesterday, you would have believed the Dolphins are a top 4 team in the NFL. It's just the truth. Like, that's why this team is so annoying, because some days they look like world beaters and a Super Bowl contender, like against the Atlanta Falcons and Buffalo Bills, and some days they look like quite literally the worst team in football against the Cleveland Browns. It's just such a weird fluctuation for this football team. But, hey, we'll be here every part of the way in the rest of the season every week for watch parties and videos every single day. So subscribe and join the channel.